freshly built Undefeated gym.
Yeah, man.
I think it speaks to a lot to the growth of Undefeated as a retailer and as a brand in general. So, what, 2002, you opened your first store?
Yeah, 2002 we opened on La Brea.
So now, 2018, that's 16 years of growth, 16 years of watching the footwear audience shift and, change. For you guys, have you guys always had a very particular demographic that has shopped with you guys, or is this a growing thing, something that you guys have had to pivot and change with as the footwear and apparel community has grown?
Well, I think as a business, you always have to evolve with the consumer. We're probably, fifth, sixth generation of consumer at this point, sneakerhead. From when it started, the sneakerhead was like a real person. They were like, it was like a comic book, like Comic-Con, or they were into comics. It was a real specific person. Today, you have everyone claiming to be a sneakerhead. Anyone that waits in line wants to think they're a sneakerhead. The term has been so marginalized that I think it's almost embarrassing to the original sneakerheads to be called that.
When I think about early, what comes to mind to like an early La Brea line is like, you don't even have to ask. They're in line for an Air Force One or a Jordan 4. Now it's, you have this cross-pollinating of high fashion and different. So, you see that shift and change in the Undefeated audience, in the Undefeated customer.
Definitely. I mean, I think now every brand really kind of, I don't want to say tricks you into thinking that everything's limited, but there's definitely hype for certain models. So people want to wait in line. That's kind of the new business model. You wait in line just to wait in line.
Just to wait.
And that kind of gives that kid the feeling of authenticity, like, no, I waited in line for this shoe, so therefore I'm legit, where it's like, no, you just have more time than somebody else to wait in that line. The secondary stores have come along and kind of picked up the low-lying fruit of the guy was our first generation customer who doesn't want to wait in line because he's embarrassed now, might have more money to do it. So he goes to the secondary store and just pays the vig on getting the shoe instead of waiting in line.
Oh, amazing. I guess as a sneaker purist, does it just make you kind of respect the general release stuff that much more now that you see all this big, overly hyped up, blown up stuff, the stuff that were like the staple pieces?
Yeah, I mean, it's Undefeated. It's a 7-day-a-week business, not just a Friday, Saturday. Yeah. We say that because we're doing business every day, not just on release days. Yeah. I think what we really appreciate more is the fact that we've been a respected entity for as long as we have, that we, by default, I think we get the volume of people just because of what we've built, not just based on hype. We like to think that the key brands respect us, what we've done, and will give us the product, therefore the people walk in the door.
Have you ever noticed, because I've noticed this, early on you go into an Undefeated, whether it was the artwork that was put on the walls, the different installations, just the layout of the store, subconsciously you go into a mall store and some of these bigger footwear retailers, it was easy to identify for me, wow, they're just they're taking something that these guys work so diligently and mindfully to craft that was specific to them. You're seeing these bigger retailers kind of embrace what you guys built from the ground level, correct?
Yeah, over a period of time, the customer has become the person either works for Nike or Adidas or works for Foot Locker. They've been able to study all the work that all the other brands have led the way for. So it's easy to take and put a piece in a store that's either a menacing sports photo or a graffiti piece, or the work's already been done. It's already been laid out.
Yeah.
So as the brands are hiring younger designers, younger directors, they're students of ours, so to speak, of being a consumer. So they're taking that intel that they've gathered from all their experience, and obviously they take it to their job. So I think it's just natural that it happens.
One thing that always stands out is how ahead of the curve they've always been. Jordan collaborations, Adidas collaborations, far beyond the years of Adidas popularity where it is today. And when I look at the Undefeated with NYXL, that partnership speaks to how far ahead of the curve you guys have always been. Now you're with this mega community, hundreds of thousands of kids around the world playing. Can you speak to me to how, a partnership like that, where it makes sense for Undefeated and just always being ahead of the curve?
I think what puts us ahead of the curve is who we are as individuals, our ability to have relationships with people that aren't just foot soldiers. Like you have that, you appeal to that, but then at the same time, how our Nike relationship started because we built an environment that the people that ran Nike were compelled. They were like, wow, that's compelling. It's not just a sneaker store. At the time when they were building sneaker stores, whether it was Nort in New York or it was us, it was Foot Soldier in London, everyone was traveling the world. They were seeing different things, and it was able to take this building, this box, and make it something that was compelling to not just your consumer, but to everybody. And that helped, I think, with all of our relationships. So even up till today, it's a personal relationship that allowed us the ability to walk in a door that we had never walked through, which was esports. I'm 50, I don't even play video games. So to have a video game relationship that my son plays at 12, it's kind of like, wow, that's crazy. Like I'm appealing to so many different people and generations through just apparel, like a couple tees, a couple sweatshirts, some hats, some things that were considered as just kind of an add-on to something that was already existing, which was the game.
Yeah.
So it's always been interesting that you have these amazing relationships, and it's all brought together by a pair of shoes or a T-shirt or a song, a drawing, anything. It's pretty amazing.
Similar to what we're seeing with the esports community grow, Undefeated has grown. You've taken boundaries. You've gone overseas into Asia. Was there anything in particular that sparked that? Was that a scary step to take? Or were you like, you identified this is a place that we need to go. Let's go get it?
Well, we were fortunate to have a partner in Japan. So when Undefeated started, like anything in streetwear, the Japanese they love streetwear. They love the idea of Americana. They're students of the industry and the culture that we built. We had a partner, we had somebody that was interested in working with Undefeated, and to this day, we're probably 10, 12 years deep with them. They've always accelerated the growth out of respect to how we wanted to grow the brand. The past few years, as relationships have gotten stronger, collabs have gotten better, there's been more, outreach, more of a fever for Undefeated, both in Japan and in China. So we've been able to, I don't want to say take advantage of it, but put it into play with our partner. And we've grown, much faster there than we have here. We can control it here. We like to control the market a little more here in the States, but in overseas, there's such a fever for it. It's a different consumer. They shop differently. They grab the information differently than we grab here. So it's been, a pace that we're not accustomed to, but fortunately we have a partner that is accustomed to that pace.
Is it a, the ideas that you guys put forth there, do they resonate with your community here, or are they so kind of over top of people's heads that they don't even?
No, I mean, we're pretty fortunate that we're self-contained, so we don't have any partners. It's just myself and, obviously the overseas partners. But they want with what we're doing here in the United States. Right. So like a brand like Supreme or Polo or an American brand, they want the story that we're telling here. So it's global. So we say it here. It also says the same thing in Tokyo, Fukuoka, Shanghai, Hong Kong. It'll say the same thing as it goes around the world.
So that consistency in the messaging is...
And I think that's what you have to have in order to be successful. You have to be authentic and have one voice. Yeah. I think when you start saying too many things, it becomes splintered and you don't really know what you're grabbing, what you're getting.
Undefeated's obviously always been rooted in athletics. You, I imagine, are a big fan of, all of our traditional sports, football, baseball, basketball. It's ingrained in the DNA of your brand. At the same time, we're watching something completely outside of the box grow. Yeah. College scholarships, really an international phenom. I guess you as a father, you have a 13-year-old son, 12-year-old son. Yeah. you know, how does that, you know, I guess how does that really resonate with you, and where do you see this growth going outside of the sports that we kind of all grew up watching and playing?
Yeah, I mean, we have a daughter. She's 16. She's completely more hands-on. She's a designer as well. You know, my wife's an artist, so they're more tangible with like the traditional arts. My son is a competitive hockey player, and his downtime, he's really kind of relaxing, playing video games. He'll have the video game on the TV, he'll have his laptop having cartoons on, he has his cell phone, talking to his friends, and they've got this crazy thing, like it can't be complete opposites. For me, it's more about human performance. You know, I opened a gym because I was really interested in the guys I was training with, you know, from studying from jiu-jitsu to multiple variations of weight training. How far can a human push themselves, you know? And, you know, at 50, I've come into this part of it a little bit late in my life based on non-traditional sports, but now seeing schools giving out scholarships to kids for esports, it's still about that human performance, you know, how the person sitting in the chair for 4, 6, 12 hours, you know, to play a video game, how they engage with the person who's watching it, how is that? Like, there's no interaction other than you're all watching the same thing on the screen. I mean, it's very intriguing. I mean, I used to be not against it, but I was like, man, I don't get it. Like, what the fuck are they doing? But as I watch my own son go from playing a physical game on the ice to like going home and communicating with his friends, it's become this a different community. It's kids who aren't doing traditional sports. It's kids who are more book savvy, who are more on the traditional path of education, but yet they found this common bond. And my kid, who was talking to somebody who I normally wouldn't think he would be, is good friends with them in this life, and then he has his friends over here. So it's very interesting to watch the whole process.
I appreciate the way that it does connect an international community of kids.
Exactly.
You know, whereas we grew up, you didn't really know a kid. You might not have known a kid 2 blocks down the street. You know, whereas nowadays these kids have these devices and mechanisms that can you know, help connect them to a global community.
Because he has friends that he goes to hockey camp with in Toronto or in Minnesota that he plays the different games with online. Like, they'll get together on a certain time, they'll text each other, and they'll talk about their games while they're playing a different video game, which is pretty interesting.
That's pretty rad.
So I kind of let it go, where I'm like, I don't want my kid to be that dude, but I'm like, you know what, you're talking to your friends, you talked about your game, you talked about his game, and you're playing. So I kind of figure it's the new way of communication, and it's kind of how they are. So I have to evolve too as a person. Become more acceptable.
Team Overwatch. Why Team Overwatch?
Personal relationship. My friend Colette took a new project, and she said, I'm doing this incredible. I have a new job. It's incredible. It's a video game company. We have a team, and she broke the whole thing down. And I was like, yeah, you know, we've been peoples for almost 20 years. I'm happy to jump in, and you know, if you're bringing it to me, it's definitely going to have some authenticity to what Undefeated's about, at least. You know, again, back to personal relationships. They know what your brand is and what it's going to do. I think it helps when doing collaborations like that. So it was easy. You know, it gave us some guidelines. We put our team to it. It's not really that hard. I mean, it was pretty simple. A couple pieces, a concept for a pop-up shop, and you know, we're off and running.
Cool. NYXL has a friendly with Philadelphia Fusion. Which way are you leaning?
I mean, it's so hard. It's so bittersweet.
All right.
It's so bittersweet, you know. I'm Philadelphia everything. I live in Los Angeles, so I see my kid wear a different jersey every once in a while. Outside of the Flyers and the Eagles, I don't really. I'm good. Ever since I got rid of Iverson, I could be whatever. But I got to go with New York only because I've been told to by a very tough young person who said she would break my legs.
So we'll go on record. Is this the very first time you've rooted for a New York team?
First time on record I've ever voted for a New York team.
Right.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Jimmy,
You
good
got
to
it.
see you, brother.
Thank you.